And for a closer look at what the referendum is and what it could mean for the region, we're joined live by Mr. Stephen Fish. He is a professor of political science at the University of California at Berkeley. Welcome back to the show, Stephen. You know, we've heard this turnaround from Putin, and despite his words, the referendum, as we know, will continue. So what does this say about his influence or lack thereof with pro-Russian supporters in the region?
It doesn't say much about it, Elaine. The truth is that Putin now wants to say that he is not in favor of carrying forward with the referendum right now, because this will make it look as if the people in Donetsk and the other places where the referendum will be carried out are acting independently, are not acting at his behest. But holding this referendum now does suit Putin's interests. We should not take his statements calling for a delay in the referendum as sincere. They are not. This is part of his plan. It doesn't mean it's all engineered by him, but he's certainly taking advantage of the situation to do what he wants to do in Ukraine, which is to create an impression of chaos and perhaps even provoke violence of the type that would then perhaps legitimate a movement of Russian troops across the border to, as he says, protect Russian speakers.
Well, how do you see the outcome of this upcoming vote? How do you think it will affect the conflict? Because, you know, there's this question of legitimacy. So if this vote happens, who recognizes the outcome?
Well, it depends on how it goes. Certainly the people in the Donetsk People's Republic, as they call themselves, the organizers of this referendum, will get the result they want. They will get some overwhelming approval for founding their own People's Republic that will then, of course, join Russia. Because the results can't possibly be fair. It's impossible to carry out a well-run referendum under these circumstances. We have to remember, neither Kiev nor Moscow have kind of legitimation of East Ukrainians' desire to join Russia. This might give him that. The outside world, of course, will not recognize, for the most part, the outside world will not recognize the results of this referendum. This is a very different situation than Crimea, where Russian troops occupied Crimea, enforced a referendum on the territory. The results were a little ridiculous. There was a lot of falsification, but at least there was a coherent territory on which a referendum could be carried out. It's completely different now in East Ukraine.
So how will the result of Sunday's referendum affect, you know, the May 25th elections that everyone's been looking toward in Ukraine?
Just holding the referendum is already going to throw a wrench in the May 25th elections in Ukraine, the nationwide elections to which you refer. And this is Putin's plan, to have this referendum a couple weeks in advance in these territories of East Ukraine, have a bunch of people say that they're actually in favor of splitting off from Ukraine entirely, will help delegitimate the elections of May 25th. And also show people that, in fact, these elections can't really be held safely and securely in East Ukraine. This is precisely Putin's plan, is to actually derail those elections, force either a delay or to make the elections look illegitimate. So to that extent, this referendum that's going to be held in a few days in East Ukraine serves its purposes.
And I want to quickly get your thoughts on this troop discrepancy along the Russia-Ukraine border. You know, Putin says they've left. There's no sign of, according to some, that they're still there. What are your thoughts on this back and forth?
There's no back and forth in terms of Russian troop movements. There's just back and forth in terms of Putin's statements. Remember, Putin denied that Russian forces were even in Crimea at precisely the time when they were taking over Crimea. He's talked, it goes from week to week and day to day, claiming that Russian troops aren't amassing on the East Ukrainian border. They're just carrying out normal exercises. Some days he says that, yeah, they're there, but they're just carrying out exercises. Others he says they're pulling back. Yesterday he said they're pulling back. Today, in fact, the Russian presence along the border looks to be intensifying. There's no sign of pulling back. We have to be very careful about taking Putin's statements as sincere statements at this point.
All right, Stephen Fish, as always, we appreciate your perspective from Berkeley, California.